we're ready.
Okay, Mr. Richardson.
Okay. Well, I can't say good afternoon, good morning. This is an official meeting of the Public Safety Committee meeting. And we are in session to take up the ordinance 07043 pertaining to animal tethering. Members of this committee, I am chair, and we have council members Gina Gregory and John Williams. And we also have with us Council Vice President C.J. Small. Do we have any? I think that's going to be it for the council.
Nope.
Oh, Joe, I don't see you. Oh, I see. I got you. And Councilman Joe Daves representing. Great.
Pretty much.
Okay, that's good. It's lunchtime. We'll take that from Joe. We have our city clerk, assistant city clerk Lisa Lambert, assistant city clerk Mary Ann Merchants. We have Chris Aldridge, our attorney. Who we have from the administration?
We have Florence Kessler is here, and Jeremy Ramey is here.
Okay, that's good. Do we have anybody representing the news media?
No.
Okay. Well, we intend to start this discussion off. Any council member, any committee members want to make a statement before we get going? Any council members? Oh, okay. So we have convened this meeting to have a wholehearted discussion on the issue of tethering dogs. We have heard from a lot of people out there on this issue. And today we want to hear from the citizens, and then we're going to come back on the 2nd of February and we're going to vote. But we want to hear from you on this issue. And we're going to give each person 5 minutes to say whatever it is that they would like to say. Any council member would like to ask them any question, we can do it. So we're going to ask City Clerk to call our first person up.
Okay, the first person would be Janine Woods with the SPCA.
Okay.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
Ms. Woods, we want to welcome you to this committee today, and you have 5 minutes to speak. Your time is starting now.
I probably won't need 5 minutes. I think that this tethering bill is a great start. I know that there are some people that are going to not like it at all because any of us in the humane movement would prefer that no dog is ever tethered ever. But I think that it's a good start, and I think we have to try to be a little bit flexible right here at the beginning, and hopefully we'll be able to educate the public and then be able to move on. I only would ask us for 2 things. One of them I think is something that we would all think was very obvious. If we could add to it that you don't put an animal out in bad weather. Unfortunately, you do have to state that as witnessed by the many dogs that drowned during Hurricane Katrina when they were left chained out. And from an SPCA perspective, I would ask that we limit this to certainly animals that are older than 6 months old. And, otherwise, I just think it's a great start. And I know we'll get some pushback on both sides, but we have to start someplace. And that's it.
Okay. Do we have any council member who would like to say anything to Ms. Woods? If not, thank you, Ms. Woods, for coming. We appreciate you taking your valuable time to be with us today.
Thank you.
Okay, City Clerk? Madam City Clerk?
Okay, Vivian Hansel.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you for letting me speak. And I would like to speak as a member of this community. We would like to see a change in the dogs being chained the entire life. And just like Janine just said, doing all weather conditions, whether it's hot or cold, the dogs are out there. I think it is time for the city of Mobile to finally step up and become as modern of a city as our neighbors in Daphne and Birmingham. Dogs are sentient beings and have rights. It is a psychological burden to feel helpless in this matter. We have done everything legal. Oh, I'm sorry, I messed up. My husband and I, we both involved in animal rescue and have rescued over 1,000 dogs. For the last 5 years, we have been living directly next to a chained dog, and we have done everything legal in our capacity to help the dog, and that includes even a fundraiser to repair the fence, enhance the fence, because they would agree that they let the dog off the chain. So I did the fundraising and had volunteers repair the fence, and yet nothing has changed in the dog's life. And I just feel really helpless in that matter. And we would like to see a change in, to have the law on our side. I also have been physically attacked by the owner of the dog. I was walking down the street, and I would assume she does not like me voting or supporting dogs not being on the chain, and she actually literally physically attacked me. And what do you have? I have a lot of people that would support this one. I hope that they send an email. I was hoping they would be here today to attend the Zoom meeting as well. And I just wanted to have my voice heard. Thank you so much for giving me the time.
And we thank you for taking the time to come to be with us today.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, could we get the names and addresses of the speakers, please?
Do you have those, Madam Clerk?
We don't have addresses.
I'm more than happy to give you my personal phone number and my personal address, if that helps in any kind. So my first name you can see on the screen is Vivian Hansel. My husband's name is Jason Duke, and we live on 119 North Ann Street. And my neighbors with a particular dog in, okay.
Yeah.
Let's maybe not give out that address, but my husband's address is 119 North Ann Street. The zip code is 36604.
Thank you. It's just, the reason I asked is it's generally our practice to ask all speakers to give their names and address.
Ms. Woods. Ms.
You're
Woods.
right. You're
Yes,
right, Joe.
I'm here.
You're-
I'm Janine Woods. I live at 24 South Reed, and the SPCA address is 620 Ziegler Circle West.
Reed. Where is Reed?
Where's Reed? We're in Midtown.
Midtown, okay.
I'm near Little Sisters of the Poor.
Oh, yeah, cool. Thank you.
Okay. Who is next, Madam?
Anna Bush.
Good
Ms.
morning.
Bush? Good morning, Ms. Bush. Will you give us your name
Yes.
and address, please?
I live at 21 Bienville Avenue, 36606. I'm in District 2. I am also a member of the Friends of the Mobile Animal Shelter. I am here mostly in a personal capacity. However, I do have a lot of time logged at that shelter, and a lot of my personal resources, both psychological and monetary. I have a number of things. First thing is kind of a technical issue, and I did email you, Mr. Richardson. I believe I emailed Ms. Rich because I thought she was on this committee, and perhaps the clerk. The ordinance A2 of the ordinance. Because leash is not a defined term, nor neither is tether, that is somewhat contrary to the Section A itself. I believe what you're trying to say is you can walk a dog on a leash, but it shouldn't be more than 10 feet long, which is those stupid retractable leashes. That really should be under subsection subsection B does not apply to a dog being walked on a leash by a person as long as it has a harness or collar. Otherwise, you're saying it's unlawful if the dog is not on a leash of more than 10 feet. Does that make sense?
It has been changed.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, good. I didn't get it in the revised version. I didn't set up the share my screen business. And then you'll see in section C that it does talk about leashing and chaining. I don't know if it might be beneficial to make those defined terms. I know you don't want to go down a rabbit hole of a million defined terms, but a leash to me is a person walking an animal, whereas a chain or a tether is an unattended animal. So there may be some value in a distinction there in the long run. Beyond that, one of the things that I really would like to know and understand, and I have asked informally, but I don't know that I've gotten an actual answer, is there an official administration statement on this in terms of public safety director, animal control, MPD? Because we know obviously at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the laws are if you don't have the resources on the ground to enforce them and to create some system for compliance, then really you're just sending people on a fool's errand over and over again. I can appreciate the animal control would like this ordinance because it is hard for them to go and say, well, we went and everything's okay because they met this, that, and the other criteria. But on the flip side, if you keep having people calling every time 20 minutes is expired and saying, hey, that dog's still on a chain, they can't do anything else. They literally spend so much of their time now. Again, I know this just kind of as an informal observer, handling a small number of locations and places. And so I question that and whether or not we're just creating yet another unfunded mandate for a very underfunded, under-resourced portion of our city government. I absolutely appreciate a lot of what's going on at the shelter. I think they've done a lot of good things in the last year because I think that it had become very, very difficult for them to meet the need of the city. But it's still, there's still only so much room, and literally they could build 50 kennels tomorrow if the money fell out of the sky, but without the people, it doesn't matter. And our city shelter is by ordinance a no healthy death shelter. Are you going to change that, for example? Is that on the table? I certainly hope not, but I want it to be in the works. So unless we know where that stands, and unless we're going to have the court resources to enforce this. And then the other question would be, is there a thought to perhaps with public-private partnerships, groups like Friends of the Mobile Animal Shelter would certainly be interested in helping with something like this, to create educational handouts, advertising. You know, the Vivian on her own had somebody do a couple of really nice graphics about, you know, no more chain type things. I think education is going to be number one, the key, because I think what we're doing in a lot of these situations is we're criminalizing poverty. We're criminalizing people who are unable to afford fencing, who are renting, who are under-resourced, and who do not have the education that they need to maybe know that this is not the best way to do it. And who really maybe don't even understand that a chained dog is no protection. They think it is, and they have it in their head. And they also have an animal. And I have animals, God knows, I have animals who get out of any fence you put out there. And I'm not going to leave them unattended for hours on end. But some people really do not have a way to not go to work, a way to come home, a way to leave their dog in the house, they rent. So these are all, you know, the law of unintended consequences is always the first one passed. So I just hesitate to race into some draconian measure with a very limited amount of resources allocated to it. I think I've covered everything. For whatever reason, no matter how clear my head is, I get nervous when I get up here.
All right, John, you want to say something?
I think we touched on a lot of things there, and I think that absolutely, Chris, if we can change leashing to tethering in that paragraph, I think it's appropriate. But you're absolutely right in saying that it is a matter of priority from administration to administration, from month to month and season to season. And it all gets down to enforcement. And I thought that was the only thing that was missing in this ordinance, other than maybe a couple of definitions. But where is the enforcement? And quite frankly, the mayor is the only one that's going to be able to speak to that. His representatives can attempt to do so, as Ms. Flo Kessler is going to try to do. But unless the mayor himself, who is the only person in the city, can direct that type of activity, I agree with you. And I just hope that, and I know that he wants to, I just hope that he's able to find a way with this administration to make it more effective.
Ms. Bush?
Thank you.
Ms. Bush, do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, let me say, the only thing the council can do is pass the law. When it comes down to responding to a call, that's in the hands of the mayor. So what the citizens will have to do, if you witness a violation, is call the police. Now, I don't think the mayor's going to come on here and say, we are not going to respond to your call. The mayor's not going to say that. So what you'd have to do is call and report what you see. The rest of that is in the hands of the administration. That's the best you can do is turn it in. If no one responds to it, dial 208-7800 inside the mayor's office and say, why didn't you respond? You got power. You have power out there. All we're trying to do today is get it on the books. Today, it's not on the books. So we shouldn't gun it down. We don't have a law against terror. We're trying to get a law on the books against terrorism. And if we discover other problems, we have to deal with it as we get to it. We don't need to create none, but if we find some, we need to face it. We will face it. If we encounter issues with this, we will face those issues. That's what we're down here for. Okay.
Councilman?
Yes.
Councilman Richardson, hey, this is Flo Kessler. I just wanted to follow up.
Tell him you're the
I'm sorry,
assistant
yes,
city attorney.
Assistant Deputy City Attorney, correct.
Yes.
And I just wanted to follow up on Ms. Bush's comments because they were very insightful. And I can tell she spent time at the animal shelter because what Ms. Bush stated is pretty much what I've heard from the animal shelter. And that is that 15 minutes is a very short period of time. This would be very difficult to enforce. And I think I hear you saying, Councilman Richardson, well, if enforcement's a problem, that's a problem, but we're going to put the law on the books. What's wrong with that? Well, what I think is wrong with that is that every city has limited resources, and those resources have to be marshaled so they're available to address the most important issues that are brought to the enforcement people. You wouldn't want police so preoccupied with enforcing this anti-tethering law that they couldn't respond to other more serious law enforcement issues. Somebody getting robbed or threatened or something like that. But so that's an extreme example. But also, even in the context of the animal shelter, does address animal cruelty. Animal cruelty is a violation of state law and of the city code. The animal shelter addresses excessive barking, which is probably another one of the evils that this ordinance is intended to prevent. So those problems can be addressed under existing law. And the problem I see in adopting something that goes beyond the capacity of the animal shelter to enforce is that they would just be inundated with too many calls, and that would just create an issue for prioritizing their services. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so one thing I would like to say, the police officers are, we put them in the 1 year training for 1 year. They're very professional. If they got a call regarding tethering and they got another call that somebody's robbing the bank, do you think they're going to go see the dog? They have good sense. They're going to leave the dog alone and going over to the bank. That's what they're going
Well,
to do.
absolutely. Yeah, Councilman Richardson, I agree with you. And that was probably not a good example. I think it's better to just focus on the services of the animal shelter itself. I think they're hard put to respond to the cruelty complaints, the excessive barking complaints that they receive currently. It would be extremely difficult to enforce a prohibition on 15 minutes of barking. That's a very short period of time.
So what is limited them? What is handicapping them from responding?
Just
Why can't they respond?
They have only so many resources.
We have $68 million in reserve. How somebody? Who is our next
Hey,
person?
I have a question, Fred.
Yes.
Are we talking about in this having police answer these calls, or is it animal control? I got a little confused when Flo was speaking, because generally if there's an issue with an animal, you call animal control.
Cruelty
Which is in the
is
hand
under
of
the
the police
current
department.
code. Current cruelty, see, we do have a current code. There is a current law, and it puts the onus on the director of the animal shelter.
It's a police officer.
Of
So,
course, always police, yeah.
so
Yes,
if,
please over that.
okay, so if this was approved, then any calls would go to animal control, not Mobile Police Department.
The point is, if the call came to the police department and the lady answered that, a man, whoever answered that call, there's no way to transfer them to. They'd send an R311. They would send them to where they would send the call to where it needs to go.
Okay, but we were talking about resources. So the resources would basically be within animal control to send somebody out. We're not talking about Mobile police officers going out to check on a dog that's chained outside.
They call for a ticket, and I don't think they can write a ticket. I don't think the animal control.
I'm just trying to get straight on who would be the ones enforcing this.
Certainly.
Tethering is against the law, and somebody has to go who can write a ticket, and that won't be an animal shelter.
Actually, tethering is not, but go ahead, Ms. Kessler.
Yeah, I think
I just wanted to say that's correct. And as Ms. Bush commented, you might have missed it. The current head of the animal shelter is from the Mobile Police Department.
Right.
So,
That is
and
right.
It
as
just so
Councilman
happens to be.
Richardson said, the police write the tickets. So it's not as simple either or. Thank you.
Okay. Madam Clerk?
Allison Rellinger.
Okay, Ms. Regler,
Hi.
Rellinger, give us your name and address, and then you have 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm Allison Rellinger, or Allie, as a lot of people know me. I live at 102 Timothy Lane, Ocean Springs, Mississippi, but I am the president of Animal Rescue Foundation in Mobile. So that's why I'm here today, or ARF, if you know us that way. I was very pleased to see that the council is taking up, talking about a tethering ordinance, since lots of the other cities in Mobile or in the state have, passed similar legislation and have this on the books. And I feel it's something that has really been lacking. And since other places in Alabama have really jumped on board of this important animal welfare, issue, that I would like to see Mobile, catch up and also do that. I do completely understand and agree with some of the concerns about the enforcement and how to make that happen. But in terms of promoting public safety, we know it's really well demonstrated that animals that are tethered are more frustrated and can cause more issues in a community. So as an animal welfare, representative in our community, I feel that this will be a positive move. And I agree with Anna that I think the nonprofits like ARF and the Friends and everything, we are poised to help with public education on this. This is something my organization will wholeheartedly, help with on that front. But I think it will be really good for the city for safety and general appeal of, Mobile as a place people want to live and work. This is just one of those issues where when you hear people do surveys of towns and cities where people want to live, animal welfare always ranks on that list of people just don't like these perceived animal welfare issues. And the reputation that we have for allowing chained animals just plays into that, reputation of our city. And it is a real issue with public safety. And I think we have a great opportunity to address it here and then work out the kinks of the enforcement so that we can make things better. But I know my organization gets a lot of calls and emails, even though we aren't animal control, they report these things to us because they are upset about this. So I think this will be viewed very favorably overall and would be a really positive move for our city.
All right, thank you. Thank you for coming. Madam Clerk, anybody want to ask Ms. Redinger any questions? If not, we'll move on to the next one.
Susan Tomlinson.
Okay, Ms. Thomason, you have 5 minutes. Give us your name and your address, please.
Thank you. My name is Susan Tomlinson. My address is 3009 Riverside Drive, Mobile, Alabama, 36605. Thank you for the opportunity to support this a tethering ordinance. I'd like to ask that consideration be given to including 4 additional requirements related to the proposed trolley system. Number 1, that only animals 6 months of age or older be allowed on the trolley. Number 2, the proposal states that the cable that attaches to the animal's neck be an appropriate weight. And I'd like to ask that that be appropriate as determined by an animal control officer, because appropriate is a subjective term and could potentially be not enforceable. I'd like to ask that the tightness of the collar or the harness be appropriate, again, as determined by the animal control officer, and that the trolley provide at least 100 square feet of space for the animal to move around. What that would mean is when the animal is standing directly up underneath the 12-foot trolley line, he'd be able to move out 4.5 feet. It's not very much space, but it does establish the minimum space requirements. The ordinance addresses many animal welfare issues, but from a public safety standpoint, a significant amount of information from credible sources such as the CDC and the American Veterinary Medical Association, they show that many animals that are kept isolated become aggressive, and that the aggression often leads them to bite. Either they bite someone who enters their area, or they break free and bite, and that children are most often the victims, and that the aggression can be easily avoided through socialization, exercise, and spending time with the dogs. There have been many, severe dog attacks by tethered dogs in Alabama, 2 fatalities that I know of, one of them being a 1-year-old child. And a local attack in 2016 in Wilmer, Michael Bolger witnessed a dog that broke free from a chain and violently attacked his 6-year-old son, Andrew. 3 days later, when Andrew was still in the Birmingham hospital in critical condition after having 3 surgeries, the father quoted to WPMI, "It's not a problem with the dogs. It's a problem with the owners not spending enough time with the dogs, with the owners keeping them on a chain." A trolley is really the same as a fixed point tether in terms of isolation. And if we keep animals on a trolley 24/7 and never allow them any socialization, then many of them will become aggressive and bite. I feel that we need measures to educate owners about the relationship between isolation and aggression, and to require that animals be taken off the trolley at some point, either such as during specified times of the day or the week, or during extreme temperatures. And lastly, I'd like to ask for requirements to help dogs endure extreme temperatures, such as requiring a four-sided shelter with solid walls and a floor, not allowing things like transport carriers with holes and barrels to be used as shelters. And a requirement similar possibly to what Huntsville has, where not providing an animal with shelter generally between 40 and 90 degrees is cruelty, with a fine anywhere from $200 to $500. What that does is just result in animals being brought into an adequate shelter or a home during extreme temperatures. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Our attorney, Chris Arledge, is online with us on Zoom with us, and he has recorded all of the issues that you just told us about. Madam Clerk, can we move on to our next person?
Donna Dixon.
Okay, Ms. Dixon, are you with us?
Yeah.
I am here.
All righty.
I didn't know I got to speak today. I just wanted to say that I live in Grand Bay. My address is...
Okay, come on, you're doing it. I do need you.
I'm the president of Crude Rescue, which is a local rescue here in Mobile. But I also wanted to speak to...
Give us your address.
9001 Schoner, Schoener Road in Grand Bay.
Okay.
Okay. I did real estate appraisals in Mobile for 36 years, and you would not believe the number of dogs that I saw in people's yards because I had access to the house. I had to go in the backyard to take pictures, and there were dogs chained every 10 feet in some of these backyards, and it was just atrocious. And I know that nobody knew that these dogs were there because animal control has to have a reason to go in the back, that kind of thing. But I just wanted to, there were some stories that you wouldn't believe about the dogs that were back there chained that were starving that nobody knew about at all. Even the occupants of the house sometimes didn't know they were there. But we also, in our rescue, we see a lot of these chained animals. We get calls every day. And what I would like to see is something on the books. Maybe it's not enforceable completely, like Anna said, but if it is on the books at all, then we have some recourse to take some action. As it is right now, we have to tell people, I'm sorry, it's not illegal. You can tie that dog up and it winds around that tree and gosh, hate it, but there's nothing we can do. If it is on the books in some capacity, then we do have some recourse.
All right, thank you very much. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. Yeah, John.
Yeah, if that would, this might be a good, and that is in the first section A, subparagraph 2, that talks about this pulley system. But it also talks about tangling, which I think is a whole nother subject. I mean, I think we're trying to put everybody into this one trolley that fixes all, and which may be cost prohibitive for someone who wants to rescue a dog and have them at least sometime outside. And I think we just need to, along those same lines, is clearly address in a separate paragraph that any manner, as suggested by Ms. Tomlinson and some other suggestions, approved by animal control or deemed appropriate by animal control officers, so long as they don't tangle, because there are some other systems out there that don't tangle at all, that allow access to shelter and water and food, and or humane tethering. What's the right term? It's a method. of tethering. Because really what we're talking about, I know I hear some of you saying, I don't want any tethering at all. But there's times when I don't tether my dog and leave them, but I'm outside and I'm working, and she wants to come out front where I'm working, then I put her on a stake, and it does not tangle. Y'all seen them all. They just spin around and around, and she can get to her water, and she's perfectly happy. And it may not be in direct eyesight of me at every moment, but as I'm walking around the front yard. So I just want to tell you where I am and what I'm hearing, because all of it's good. But what we're really talking about today is the tethering of animals, what you can't do and what you can do, and what, the objectives. So I just want to make sure, we're hearing that, because I'm hearing all of it. And I got a dog that's 15 feet from me. She expects her time outside, and she gets it most of the time without any restriction except the fence. Next, Mr. Richardson, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Madam Clerk?
Marquita Lyons.
Okay, are you with us, Ms. Lyons?
I don't see that name.
I don't see.
All right, Denise Greer.
Did see that one. There she is.
Ms. Greer, are you with us?
If nothing else, if you could just unmute your mic and let us listen to you, that'd be great.
I don't think she is with us either.
Okay, there.
Yes, there she is.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms.
I
Greer,
don't know how to do this. I've never done this.
Oh, but you're doing good. You're doing good. You're gonna have 5 minutes, and we want you to give us your name and address, and then tell us what you want us to know.
Okay, my name is Denise Greer. I live at 2067 Dauphin Street, District 1. I'm a freelance animal rescuer. I do most of my rescue work in District 2. So I see a lot of chained dogs, and we do need this ordinance. We desperately need this ordinance. I sent everybody an email with the story about a dog named Tazzy. I named him Tazzy. He lived in Plateau. It's an African name that stands for one who stands alone or one who lives alone. So that was appropriate for a chained dog who spent his life in isolation. There was the house that he was chained at is unoccupied. It's next to Mobile County Training Center. He saw, and children saw him chained there every day, neglected. The owner did not live on the property, and he starved to death. So I sent you an email with his story and pictures of him alive and pictures of him dead, because I saw him dead. I responded to a Facebook post about the dogs on those properties, chained and neglected. And I discovered one of the dogs that was starving was alive, and when we rescued her, I smelled his body. I did not find him, but I smelled his body. A few days later, the school children passing by the house on their way to school told their teacher about the odor. And she's made a Facebook post needing help for the dogs. And I went back and I looked, and we did find his body. So what I want to do is add some language to the ordinance about dogs that are chained on property that is not occupied, both private, personal, and business, because a lot of people use dogs as alarm systems, as a way of keeping people off their properties, but they don't live on the properties. So that's something that we need to address, because a lot of these dogs, like Susan said, and Donna said, nobody knows they're there, they're not being fed, and they die.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
We hear you loud and clear. Our attorney is making notes on all of what you all are telling us today. And I appreciate you taking from your valuable time to come and talk to us about this serious issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Richardson.
Yes.
when you get to a good point, maybe after all these people talk, I can address some of this stuff.
Okay, yes. Okay, thank you. Do we have any more testimonies, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Richardson, those are all that I have that actually called in and said that they wanted to address. There are others that are on the Zoom. I'm not sure if they want to speak.
Ms. Gilbert's raised her hand a couple of times.
Okay, Ms. Gilbert, yes, we want to hear from you. State your
Well,
name
how
and
are
address.
all of you down in Mobile? My name is Mindy Gilbert. I'm the Alabama State Director for the Humane Society of the United States. And I'm zooming into you from Jasper, Alabama today, where I live at 910 North Delaware Avenue. I very much appreciate the opportunity to add a few thoughts. I did obtain a copy of the proposed ordinance, and there's a great deal about it that I like. And I've heard a number of people comment today with some concerns about changes they'd like to see. I do want to reiterate that it isn't just a humane issue. The American Veterinary Medical Association assembled a community task force of veterinarians to address dog bite problems. And some of the data that came out of that study was that more than 17% of the human fatalities as a result of dog attacks happened from dogs that were tethered. And there's just no question, if you are an animal lover, that tethering as a primary means of containment, not the situation that Mr. Williams described where he's out in the yard and he has his dog, you know, on a line, but the way that a dog lives 24/7 as a primary means of containment is detrimental to the welfare of the animal, but can be very detrimental to the safety of the community. I do like the fact that you are approaching this by defining humane tethering as opposed to banning tethering completely. While I don't like it, I'm also aware that a lot of people are not able to fence their yards. They may be mobility impaired and not able to walk their dogs for proper exercise. And I do think the definition of humane tethering is important. If I was going to suggest a couple of tweaks, one would be, I think somebody mentioned earlier, prohibiting tethering of dogs under 6 months of age, which I agree with, because that's a very key period of time in their life to develop sociability, which is what allows them to live with people and other animals without causing problems. But also because of where you are located and the fact that I still have PTSD from being a Katrina responder for 7 weeks, that you consider banning tethering during a severe weather event in which your local National Weather Service Bureau has issued a warning. Clearly, you're talking about protecting people during those warnings, but if it's bad enough that people need to be protected, then a helpless animal that's tied up outside also needs to be protected. And then I'm just going to leave you with a thought. It does sound like there's a lot of interest in this and other issues that relate to tethering in Mobile. And I would say that that is representative of a societal trend across the country. Quite a few cities in the state have passed tethering ordinances, and some of them are total bans and some of them are very involved. And I, having administered a municipal animal control department, I understand the constraints placed upon responding to complaints resource-wise, but it may just be beneficial for the city to consider putting together an ad hoc advisory committee that would have representatives of law enforcement and the shelter and citizens in good standing to consider this or any other improvements to the animal ordinances of Mobile. And Councilman Richardson, you have my contact information. I, again, appreciate so much the opportunity to be able to zoom in from afar. And thank you all very much for your interest in this matter.
Thank you. Let me just say, on my years on the council, I don't know whether or not we have discussed any ordinance and had people participating. All you coming from a long, you are zooming in from a long way. So this ordinance has got to be one of interest for us to have a person of your caliber to zoom in and give us this valuable information. And we appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Well, Councilman, thank you for referring to that as a zoom in and not flying in on my broomstick. And you are correct. These are issues that bring interest to the forefront from people that very often are not engaged with government at the local level. And my final thought before I have to zoom out and annoy somebody else is that, you know, these are not isolated concerns. More than 65% of every household in the United States owns more than one companion animal. And so it isn't a situation in which animals are more important than people, but I suggest that animals are very important to the majority of people.
Right.
And I very much appreciate that all of you are taking this into consideration. And I hope that it will be an opportunity for discussion into the future. And if I can ever be of help, I'm more than happy to zoom down with my 2 cents for it.
Amen. Thank you so much. All right. Madam Clerk?
It's open at this point, Mr. Richardson.
Okay, is there another person out there who would like to speak to us? If so, give us your name. Okay, so not hearing from any other person out there.
Okay, Mr. Allison Ringlinger has her hand raised.
Okay.
It's me again. I just wanted to respond to something that Mindy had brought up about the concern about severe weather events. And just to let you all know that that is something that ARF gets a lot of calls about. 5 years ago, when we had a real extreme cold snap, we ended up distributing 300 kennels to the community so people could bring their dogs in from the outside. We literally drove around and dropped off like in plastic kennels to bring dogs indoors. So this is a real problem. And even I used to live on Dauphin Island, which I know isn't in the city, but I remember being there for a tropical storm and having police officers show up to my door knowing that I ran an animal shelter and asking me if I could watch some stray dogs that were running about because people had left them in a yard during a tropical storm, and the police were overextended on resources and asked, could I just please contain them? So I personally took dogs because they didn't have that. And I know that similar situations must definitely arise within the city limits too. And that this is something I've experienced for many years at our organization. And as was a very good point I had not thought about that Mindy brought up, and would like the committee to think about that point too.
All righty. I think our attorney has all of that down. And from here, we're going to go to our attorney. He told us he would like to give up his wrap up on what we discussed this morning. Chris, can you chime in?
Yes. So in putting this ordinance together, it is not, created in a vacuum. There's a whole chapter that already exists in the city code about caring for animals. And this particular section was within that. And at the time, well, currently, it allows, it was a kind of part of the running at large section, which allowed animals to be on a chain or tethered not less than 10 feet in length and not so heavy as to be dangerous to the animal, or that would allow it access to property of others or the public right of way. So I took that section, and the goal that was given to me was, we want to stop tethering generally.
Right.
So I looked at what other cities had done, and to get some ideas and put this together with the trolley system, which seemed kind of to me a middle ground, so to speak. Now, a lot of the comments are about issues that are already kind of covered in the other parts of the existing ordinance. That's why this one's so simple. For example, the types of shelter. Shelter is defined in this chapter as a place of protection from danger. For example, bad weather. That's why it's capitalized in this draft that I came up with. There's another code section, 7-8, that give parameters for the type of shelter: 3-sided, at least 3-sided, roofed, adequately drained, ventilated, moisture-proof structure, suitable size to accommodate the animal, retain body heat, and also shall be periodically cleaned to minimize disease and odor. The trolley system, mentions that they got to have access to shelter as it's defined in the other place in the ordinance. The other thing is, there's already a state law on animal cruelty. Now, what is that? Well, it's kind of a judgment call on the part of the police officer whenever they go out, or the animal control officer, whoever it is, whenever they go out to, check on things. So my point is, it would be very difficult to define, extreme weather. And I think you need to be flexible in keeping with some of the stuff that is already on the books.
Right.
Without saying, well, if it goes over 98 degrees, or under something, or it's raining 3 inches in a day. I mean, how do you define how far you go? I think you should kind of just leave some of that up to the judgment call of the police officers or the animal control people who are sort of trained to spot that stuff. The 6 months of age thing, we could add that. Somebody mentioned the cable being the appropriate weight and tightness and things. And that's why I use the term, appropriate. So it would be appropriate strength and weight, so that they give the animal control officer some kind of good sense way to figure out whether it's a okay situation or a not okay situation. Because we don't know, we can't say for 10-pound dogs it shall be this, size harness or whatever, because we have no idea. It's going to be different in every occasion. The chaining them on other property, I think that is covered, I think, under C. It's unlawful to, and I can change that word leash to tethered, like the one lady said. It's unlawful to tie, chain, or tether them to a fixed point for more than 15 minutes. Now, the point of that, so if it's on your property or not on your property, it's the person who's got control of the animal, the owner, keeper, or handler, whatever it may be, that's on the hook for this. And I threw in the 15 minutes because just for the exact situation that John was talking about with, he's out in his front yard doing something and wants to tie the dog up on the stake while you're cutting the grass or whatever it might be. If that time needs to be adjusted, that's fine. Within sight of the animal, that could be taken out, and where you're just sort of physically present, but maybe you went around the corner of the house or whatever. So the time could be adjusted. Some of this stuff could be adjusted. I just need y'all to tell me what you want. But we can't write up something to cover every conceivable situation. That's what we got to do.
I think.
May I make one comment? This is Janine Woods.
Come on, Ms. Woods.
Would it be possible? I understand perfectly what you're saying about the weather, but could we define that and say something that if there is a warning or whatever from the National Weather Service? Could we define it that way? I mean, I know that everybody sitting here does not think that we need to tell people if there's a tornado warning, you do not chain your dog out. But I can promise you they'll still do it. I think everybody in animal rescue that's on here is going to know that. We've also had, you know, a hurricane, a literal hurricane, and people left their dogs chained out and they drowned. This does happen. So maybe if we could define it with the National Weather Service, that would be enough. It's just a thought.
Well, isn't that cruelty?
Yes, sir, it would be cruelty, but you got to get somebody. I mean, I don't know. I think the hardest thing we have is getting people to go out and investigate these things.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Well,
We've got a cruelty law, but if it's not going to be enforced, well, you know.
So what this is what our attorney is saying. We can say that if we get an alert from the Weather Bureau that you must do this, that, and the other, but when the police arrives, he got to determine what he's gonna write you a ticket on. Not gonna write no ticket on the weather, what the weatherman said. It's whether or not you are cruel to that animal. That's what he's gonna write the ticket on. If your action resulted in the cruelty to that animal, then he's gonna write you a ticket for that. And we can stipulate a lot of conditions that would result in cruelty. But basically, when the police get there, he's going to see whether or not you have been cruel to this animal, no matter what it is that you are doing. You can say, well, it's nothing in the book saying I couldn't choke my animal. It's something in the book that you can't be cruel to your animal. And that's what they're going to get him on.
Yeah. Hey, Fred?
Yes.
I understand what you're saying, and Chris and Janine as well, you know, just thinking through it. What Janine is saying, that people leave their dogs chained up out in the yard during extreme weather, like a hurricane. Well, by the time somebody gets animal control out to check on the dog, in some instances, the dog is already drowned and died because it's been out in the weather. I mean, I know we can't do all things in this one particular ordinance because we're really trying to focus on tethering. But to some degree, if we can reinforce this idea that you cannot keep your dog tethered in extreme weather, maybe we can just reinforce that to people so that they understand it. And when we do some education, which I think is sorely needed, maybe that would help. I just wanted to throw that out.
Could I suggest some language to the effect of including but not limited to times of National Weather Service issued evacuations, hard freeze warnings, flood or tornado warnings? That would mean, okay, so then when we as a rescue group or the city shelter says, bring your dogs in, like we do frequently when these bad events are coming on, we can also slap up there, City of Mobile ordinance. You may not leave your dogs out in this weather. Because I think that would maybe carry a little more weight than just saying, hey, we think it's a bad idea to leave your dogs out tonight, but hey, what do we know? And that would still not take away the discretion of the animal control officers to go, this is a borderline case, the weather's kind of crappy, but it's not necessarily a warning, but you have consistently left your animals out in temperate weather. We want you to take them in. And if you don't, we're going to write you a ticket, et cetera, and so forth.
Chris, what you say to that, Chris?
Even our weathermen, when they're doing weather reports, getting ready for hurricanes and that sort of thing, they talk about, or for freezing temperatures, cover your plants, bring in your pets, your plants, and all of that sort of thing. I mean, they put it out there too, but you know, how is that really getting the message across to the people who do tend to leave their dogs chained out in the backyard?
Yeah. Chris, you got all of that?
Yeah, I can throw something in about that.
Okay. All right.
And may I add something to the temperatures as well?
Come on.
Especially since we live in Mobile, Alabama, I think my main concern is not only the times that we face maybe a hurricane or a freeze. When we have temperatures over 90 degrees or 100 degrees, I think that there might be something that you could include in regards to high temperatures, because dogs suffer. Not all of the dogs that are chained have proper shelter to find shade or even have the water available. So I was wondering if maybe something could be included also to high temperatures, especially here in our area.
Okay, we'll take a look at that.
Thank you.
May I add something about the shelter? Well, no, a weight that's attached to the animal's neck. The way it's written now, it says appropriate. Does that mean that if animal control goes to a location and they deem it not appropriate, it's not appropriate? Because I feel like a lot of chains.
That's exactly it. You just answered it. If the professionals visit the house and they say this is not appropriate, it's not appropriate.
Okay. They're empowered to make that decision. Okay,
yes.
That's great. All right.
Yeah. Okay, so I think unless there's somebody else.
Yes, me.
All right.
Oh, hey, Terry.
I'm sorry I couldn't get my silly Zoom to work. I'm sorry. I don't know where you are, but I want to say this. I asked Mr. Richardson to sponsor an anti-tethering ordinance for the city. Yes.
But Terry, start off by giving us your name and address, and then let us know.
Okay. Name, Terry Mitchell. Address, 117 West Cali Court in Mobile. All right. I ask you to sponsor an anti-tethering ordinance because dogs in Mobile are being left on a chain for years. They're being traumatized. It not only traumatizes the dog, it traumatizes the people. I'll give you an example. Some renters in Mobile chained up a dog, pit bull puppy to a fence, and they chained up another dog to a fence. All right. They moved out and left the dogs to starve to death, chained to the fence. This is not uncommon in Mobile. All right. The people next door, a hurricane hit, the dogs were in the hurricane. All right. People next door looked over there the next day, and the pit bull puppy was up to his neck in water. And they said, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? These animals are going to die. We don't know how to feed them. So the irresponsibility of that pet owner, was put onto the people next door. Now it's traumatizing the people next door. What do? They call animal control. Now the irresponsible acts of the person tying up the dog is on the city. Animal control has to go out and try to help those dogs. So it becomes everybody's problem. District, it's not happening in my district. Let me address that. Unless you've walked the street and looked in every backyard, you don't know if it's happening in your district, all right? But let's just say, for the sake of argument, it's not happening in your district and there's not a single dog tied up in your district, all right? It's not about your district. It's not about her district. It's not about his district. It's about our district. It's about everybody's district, all right? So this issue affects all the districts. Animal control, from what I can tell, is being impeded from doing their job and enforcing the anti-cruelty laws because of the legality of chaining these dogs. They can't get past the legality of that because a lot of the cruelty that's going on stems from the dog being chained. The state of Alabama regards animal cruelty as a very serious offense. The fine is up to $3,000 and or a year in jail, and it escalates from there. Why doesn't the city of Mobile consider animal cruelty a very serious offense? I think one of the reasons is because animal control is being impeded by the legality of being able to chain up a dog indefinitely, all right? If the city of Mobile would adopt the same sort of fines on the situation and outlaw the chaining of the dogs, the city of Mobile could actually bring in significant sums of money because these fines are very significant. Even if Mobile fined people up to $500 or $1,000, all right? That's a lot of parking tickets, all right? The city of Mobile can do this. The city attorney in 2015 updated the animal cruelty laws, but they didn't update the fines, all right? Those fines need to be updated. And if you can remove this, this problem of allowing chaining to go on, then the officers can do their job. Responsible owners don't chain up their dogs, all right? Responsible owners get those dogs fixed, make those dogs part of the family, and they take them to the vet when they're sick. Here's an example of how the animal control is being impeded by doing their job. You have, let's say, an emaciated pit bull on the end of a chain, all right? And you go to the owner and you say, what's up? Owner says, I got a 50-pound bag of dog food over here, all right? I don't know what's wrong with the dog. Well, what's wrong with the dog is you didn't take it to the vet. It's full of hookworms and it's dying on the end of that chain, all right? So if you say, you know what? The state law says neglect is animal cruelty, all right? So technically that person is neglecting that animal because they didn't take them to the vet, all right? And they can be charged and they can be fined for that. I asked a woman, I said, why are you chaining this dog? And her exact response was, to bite you. She very well knew that chaining up a dog would make it aggressive, all right? This nonsense needs to stop. I think that chaining should be made illegal so that officers can do their job and the city would benefit. It's win-win for everybody except the irresponsible owner who doesn't get their dog fixed, who doesn't take their dog to the vet, and who does not socialize their dog so that it does not become aggressive, all right? I think those are really important. I'm not in favor of transferring a dog from a 10-foot chain to a 12-foot cable. That makes no sense. It doesn't solve the problem. All it does is perpetuate the problem. So, I mean, that goes to how the ordinance is written. But as you can tell, I'm very passionate about this. I've looked into it. I've done all kinds of hours and hours of research about what's going on in Mobile. And I really ask the city to please outlaw this archaic practice that is outlawed in many states and many municipalities. That's all I have for now.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you, Terry. Terry contacted me and regarding tethering dogs here. Terry sent me ordinances from various municipalities. Terry sent me a petition with citizens on it from all over the city. And I sent all of that information in to our attorney. And it resulted in him putting this ordinance on the agenda today. I thank you, Terry, for having done all of that. We've gotten great response from all over the city. And evidently, those who are chaining their dogs believe it's wrong because not one signed up today to defend that behavior. Not one signed in to, I want to continue on to chain my dog whenever I get ready. Not one of them signed in. So I think the ball is in our court and it's up to us to do something about chaining. I believe we have heard from everybody. I'm going to come back now to the committee members. John, we're closing out now. Is there anything that you would like to say as we close this out?
No, I think I've addressed everything. And just for Terry's sake, this was recorded. It's on YouTube, to the best of my knowledge. I believe that's the platform. And so you can see all comments and everything in its entirety.
Appreciate it.
Well,
thank you.
Well, I think we're Facebook Live and YouTube. Okay. Gina?
Yeah, I just have a question, and Chris, you might can help, or Flo's still on the line. when animal control is called about a dog being on a chain in the backyard and that it's animal cruelty, can the animal control officer go into the backyard? Because I know in a lot of instances, our folks can't go into backyards. So with this, are they allowed into a backyard to check?
Where's Flo?
I can answer that. According to the ordinance, they
Right.
can. The existing ordinance.
Okay. Flo, thank you, Terry. Flo, are you on?
Yeah, yes, thank you. And I will certainly get a more precise answer, but my understanding is the animal control officers are very limited in what they can do. If there is a police officer present, that might be possible, but I will definitely check with them. I do believe that that's a problem because generally with any other city enforcement officer, they don't go into the backyard.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's an issue. If we're looking at anti-tethering, how are our folks going to go in to even check to see if it's there, if there is a problem?
They're allowed to under the ordinance.
Fred.
From what I
Yeah.
read.
Look, City Code, Section 7-30, authority to enter private property.
Okay.
Any animal control officer, city police officer, or agent of the shelter is authorized to enter upon private property to impound any animal observed at large and chase to such property or any animal that in the reasonable discretion of the animal control officer, police officer, or shelter agent has been abused or neglected.
That's the answer to that. And let me just say in general terms, if an officer observes any illegality, the officer can act. If he's looking at what's a violation, you can't stop no officer saying you don't have no right. No. If the officer in plain view observe a law being violated, that officer can act. But anyway, we are getting ready to close this out. I don't have anything to add to what's already been said. All of this, what we're saying today is our attorney has it. It's going to come back to us, and it'll be back on our agenda on this second. And at that particular time, it's going to the council will be. You all can sign in to speak if you want to on that date, but we will be through with all of this, and we're going to make a decision on what we're going to do, vote it up or down. I would like to take, yes.
Do you want me to, I can take what we've got here and tweak it with some of the comments. I think we addressed some of the stuff, but the 6 months of age, the extreme weather conditions. Does anybody do you have any guidance what you want on the time, the 15-minute thing?
Okay, so I don't have nothing against 15 minutes from me. We already have 15 minutes. That's what you have on there now. Is that
right? I mean, do you think that's too short? I don't know. There was some comments.
If I may, the feedback I got from the animal shelters that is too short. I did not get it. I can ask them for a suggestion on a different period of time.
I would agree with that too. I would agree.
So this what I recommend, Chris, call animal. Well, if you don't want to do it, I can let Lisa and them call the animal shelter to find out what they recommend, to give us their recommendation.
Let Flo do it.
Flo,
I think Flo's going to talk to them and get something that's more reasonable.
You're going to do it, Flo?
Yes.
Okay. Good. And just get back with Chris with what you found out, Flo. We're not going to be fighting what they recommend. So we'll go with that.
Fred, I
So-
am renege on my declination. As Ms. Tomlinson pointed out, I think it's really important that there be some language that says at the discretion of the animal control officer, whether or not it's cruelty, proper chain, proper
Right.
harness. It has to get down to that discretion because we can define all kind of things. If those aren't functioning, or if the owner's intent and what is observed is different, the animal control officer has to have some authority to determine
I agree.
cruelty. And,
Yes.
and in this case, cruelty through tethering or improper tethering.
I agree 100%. Okay.
Send it to me, Chris. I'll see if that.
Okay. So, Gina, do you want to say anything before we close it out?
No, I'm good, thanks. Just thank
Okay,
you who participated.
Yeah, I would like to thank all this has been, we have had great participation in this. People remotely from other municipalities. This is just great. And I appreciate that we're taking all of this into consideration. It'll be back before us on the 2nd. And as far as I know of now, if we don't have nothing from any other the members, we're going to close this out and thank you all for being with us today.
Make sure we have your contact information. Call the city clerk's office. Thank you.